Welcome to Hard Talk with me, Zainab Badawi. Zimbabwe's economy is once again staring down at the abyss. Hospitals are running out of basic supplies, more than a third of households are going hungry, and criticisms of the veteran president, Robert Mugabe, are gathering pace. My guest is Zimbabwe's Finance Minister, Patrick Chinamasa, a long-time cabinet minister and ally of Mr. Mugabe. How will he sort out this mess that he himself must stand accused of helping create? Finance Minister Patrick Chinamasa, welcome to Hard Talk.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation.
You were Justice Minister for about 12, 13 years, and then 3 years ago you were made Finance Minister. Frankly, you were handed a poison chalice, weren't you?
Yes, we found ourselves in difficulties. And these difficulties, as you may know, are a result of Zimbabwe embarking on the land reform program, which was a decolonization issue to sort out the major core grievance which caused the armed struggle. So the reaction to our land reform program, arising of course from the fact that when there was cessation of hostilities, the British government, during the time of Margaret Thatcher, made undertakings to make resources available to compensate white farmers. So
let me just get this clear.
Yes.
You're saying that the present problems, which I will talk about with
Yes.
you, are all because
very
of
much
the British.
Yes, very much.
Nothing to do with ZANU-PF.
No,
You've been a
very
member
much.
of ZANU-PF in the Senate, started off 1985.
Yes.
You've been Attorney General, Justice Minister.
As you know,
nothing to do with how you've
As you know, Zimbabwe, up to the sanctions, was able to meet its international obligations. We had a functioning economy, but that functioning economy was undermined by the sanctions, which crippled our capacity to honor our international obligations. So we got into this hole, and the exercise right now is to try to get us out of the hole which we were put into 16 years ago.
Okay, you've brought up the issue of land, and we've got real food shortages now in Zimbabwe, where the United Nations, UNICEF, Children's Agency, says that 37% of households in Zimbabwe go hungry. So that's an awful lot more people than the 37%, obviously, because, you know, there are lots of people in households.
It's not true that Zimbabweans are going hungry. Because
well, that's the UN. Okay, but you have to argue with the United Nations about that,
We have
not
gone
me.
out of our way and to assure every Zimbabwean that they will not go hungry. We are importing food, we are distributing, and the distribution has been going exceedingly well.
Well, Jane Muter, can I say,
who can claim that they are going hungry when we have a system of distribution of food.
UNICEF's country director, Representative Jane Muter, said in March this year, we have not seen these levels of malnutrition in more than 15 years. The United Nations is appealing for help. But, OK, you're saying that nobody's going hungry. The United Nations say you are.
Going hungry. Yes, we are appealing for assistance because the burden on Zimbabwe government alone may be too great. But as I tell you, and as I speak to you, we are importing food. And
70%. 70% of your food is imported.
Agricultural output this year has been much more than we anticipated. And that also we are buying and distributing to our people.
You import 70% of your food needs.
Yes,
and
sure.
When you look at how rich Zimbabwe could be, you've brought up this issue of farming and land, and you're saying it's all the problem of the former British colonial power. But look, although Zimbabwe has 4.3 million hectares of arable land, only 2.8 million hectares of that land were cultivated in the 2014-15 cropping season, and not just because of the climatic shocks that all of Southern Africa has gone through, you know, natural problems, but also because there's been a woeful lack of investment by your government over many decades in agriculture.
Like I mentioned, everything can be traced back to our standoff with those countries which impose sanctions on Zimbabwe. It undermined our agriculture, clearly, I admit. It basically made our land unproductive because of lack of funding to our farmers, lack of access to credit. And these are the issues that we are now seeking to resolve. We need to resolve those issues, especially to do with accommodation with those countries which impose sanctions. So you
accept state support to the agriculture sector has been totally inadequate, as lots of experts say. Ian Scoons from Institute of Development
Studies. Yes, I admit, but I want you to understand the origin of that problem. The origin of that problem.
Okay, so the Zimbabwe Farmers Union now says the country needs $2 billion a year to revive the farming sector. What's the projected...
I could put it more than that.
Okay, what's your projected budget spending for 2016 on agriculture?
On agriculture for 2016 has been very inadequate.
I can tell you what the figure is, Minister.
Yes,
it's 1.5 million when you need $2 billion.
It's inadequate. Like I told you, there is no access to funding.
It's not even inadequate, it's a fraction, isn't it?
Yes. There is no access to funding for agriculture. And that is our major problem. And the lack of funding is arising from the standoff between us and our traditional partners.
But you've got $15 billion of revenue from the diamond industry in Zimbabwe, which your president himself, Robert Mugabe, said in March had been looted and simply disappeared.
Yes, I think you need to understand.
There is money. It's just not going to the right place.
There is potential in our economy, no doubt. But I don't think you are right to try to ascribe it to bad management. It's not been. We went through a revolution. The land issue was a revolution in itself.
You know, I've moved on from that.
It undermined the way we were running the economy. Now, let me come back to the 15 billion.
Yeah.
The 15 billion, essentially what we are saying is, over the years, there's been an economic loss arising from trade mispricing. Now, you put it differently, you say looting, but I would rather put it to say it's mispricing. The problem that we know happens in all developing countries, under-invoicing of commodities over a period of time. Yes, you can also put it to the fact that in that case, we were caught sleeping. But the truth of the matter is that it's arising from mispricing, and it's an issue now we are interrogating with a view to coming up with the necessary systems to prevent from that from happening in the future.
But, you know, I mean, we started this bit here to say, you said we don't have the money to put the investment into the farming sector that you say you would like to give. It's just a fraction. And I said there is money, but the suggestion is it's not going to the right places because, as we know, Zimbabwe is the world's 8th biggest diamond producer, and there is a lot of money that could develop the country. Indeed, just from that industry alone. As global,
which is why we are reorganizing. We are now reorganizing that sector. I'm sure you are aware that we have descended on the diamond sector, restructuring it and consolidating the companies. There were 7 companies that were operating in that sector, and it became difficult to carry an oversight over all those companies. So we are consolidating. Okay. We acknowledge that there has been a mistake.
Who is looting this money? Because a Zimbabwean filmmaker and columnist, Ferai Savenso, quoted on the BBC website, says, no inquiry, no arrests, just a $15 billion hole in the nation's coffers?
As far as I'm
know, let
me repeat. Okay. It's an economic loss that we have suffered, not just in diamonds, but also probably across a wide spectrum of minerals, to do with under-invoicing and over-invoicing of raw materials and inputs. And it's a matter that we are interrogating with a view to coming up with the necessary systems to prevent that from happening.
Well,
the Minister of Mines is working on the amendment of the Mines and Minerals Act in order to make sure that systems are put in place.
I'll give you one example of a view as to who is doing the looting of the diamond wealth of Zimbabwe. Global Witness, as you know, very prominent campaigning group, in their report 2014 said revenues from Zimbabwe's diamonds, whether mined and marketed within or outside former government control, are helping to prop up Robert Mugabe's repressive regime.
That is not true.
Okay, well, that's what they've done after a long...
We have been struggling. We wouldn't have struggled if we had 15 billion to our credit.
Well, you're struggling.
You know, the point is, I wanted to emphasize the point, it's an economic loss arising from mispricing, and it's an issue now in our amendments to the Mines and Minerals Act we are going into, not just for diamond sector, but across
so
the entire
government
sector.
will have to make sure that Zimbabwe has more than a 50% stake in each of these
In fact,
companies.
in the diamond sector, we have started with a consolidated company right now, which is 100% owned by government.
All right, so theft won't happen in future. Theft won't happen in future without
we are
officials
saying
knowing.
in the diamond sector, we are reserving that sector to government parastatal. And already, the work that already has been done and the transparency, we are now being able to get on a daily basis production figures which we didn't used to get in the past.
All right, but you have got a huge challenge. I started by saying to you, you've got a poison chalice. We talked about food, basic need, of course. People have to have food.
Yeah, sure.
Another basic need is health care. The state of your hospitals.
Yes, no,
it's terrible, isn't it?
Yes,
there isn't even
yes, I admit.
out-of-date panic.
Yes, I admit as long as you also admit where the genesis of the problem.
Well,
you have to admit. When sanctions were imposed, it crippled our capacity. We no longer had a functioning economy. Overnight, the formal sector collapsed, and it became
when
an
were the
informal
sanctions
sector.
imposed?
Sorry?
The sanctions weren't there from day one, were they?
No,
in
they
Zimbabwe?
were there.
Not from day one.
No, the
not
noises
from 1986.
No, from 2000.
Exactly, not from 1986.
No, but up to 2000.
Okay,
please,
well, let me just
give it to us.
Okay,
up to 2000.
Okay.
We were
From
honoring
2000.
our obligations. Our health sector was in good condition. So was the education sector. And notwithstanding these challenges, notwithstanding these challenges, we have remained in pole position with respect to all those things they are blaming us about.
1980, look at life expectancy. Life expectancy, 1980 was 59 and a half years of age for the average Zimbabwean. It's now 57 and a half.
You are not taking into account.
I'm saying to you, the sanctions are not, you can't just blame the sanctions.
The 1980 figures were basically of a small number of a population, the white population. If you are talking about those life expectancies, they were to do with a small population. Since independence, we have spent millions into education, expansion of education, expansion of the health sector. And I think we should be given credit for that.
But the fact...
Something that was not there before independence. People would go hungry before independence, they will not be fed.
But I should just...
but only the President Mugabe's government is able to undertake a feeding of the entire population, something that never happened in the history of colonialism.
So we've just talked about your hospitals. You know, some of Zimbabwe's major public hospitals are so poorly stocked they can't even provide cotton wool or basic painkillers. Harare's health director, Prospero Chonzi, says 6 cases of typhoid had been confirmed, with more expected to emerge. So, you know, you might have a typhoid outbreak. When you want to dwell on the negative, there were shortages.
No, because there are good success stories. The fact that after this pounding, we have remained resilient and able to have any health system still worth talking about is good credit for us. It's just that you are not appreciating and accepting.
These are not my words, though, Minister. These are not me. Can I tell you who it is? Can I tell you one critic? Health and Childcare Minister David Pariniatua said of the huge healthcare shortage, as a ministry, it concerns us that government should do something urgent about this, and that something is through the Minister of Finance. You're being asked to sort out this mess.
But
this is your colleague saying that.
As I explain even to my colleagues and to whoever bothers to listen, we are coming from a very bad situation, which you say was a poisoned chalice. You rightly pointed out. And to climb out of that difficult situation will take time. It's a process, not an event. And above all, we need to have an economy that is performing so that we can address all those issues that you're mentioning.
But people are now openly criticising the government. Even Robert Mugabe himself. I mean, Zimbabwean Broadcasting Corporation carried a report in January blaming the government for the latest drug shortages. And the state broadcasters, you know, is rarely critical of the ruling ZANU-PF
No, they
government.
are very
Well, all right, but, you know, they are
very
now
critical.
saying, and it's not just the state broadcaster, you've got young people inside and outside Zimbabwe saying enough is enough. You know, the authorities are being openly criticised. Even as I said, one of your colleagues is saying something has got to be done about this woeful state of affairs.
Yes, something which we have now crafted a path out of all those challenges. But it has to be understood it's a process and not an event. We need to get all the factors together to make the economy grow again, which it is not.
Yeah, but when people look at the, I have to say this to you really, the president's daughter gives birth recently in Singapore. And we've discussed how bad the hospitals are. Maternity health care in particular is awful. And they see the president's daughter jetting off to give birth somewhere else. How do you think most Zimbabweans would view that?
No. I think I've already said.
But what do you think of that
accept,
particular example?
We
where
accept,
you see the president's family
we accept
doing
that the health situation is not where it should be.
And if you've got money, as she clearly has,
and we are working very hard to mend the situation, to improve the situation.
You
and
don't want to comment on
It's not
bonus.
a process. It's not an event. It's a process. And that is exactly
I'm with you
what
on
we
that.
are doing.
But you don't want to comment on the fact that Zimbabweans might get fed up when they see that their hospitals are unable to treat the sick.
It's their opinion.
What's your opinion?
It's their opinion.
What's your opinion when the president's daughter goes abroad?
We should have a situation where we can, by all means, make sure that most Zimbabweans are treated at home and not outside.
Okay.
So the situation where some Zimbabweans feel that they should go outside the country, clearly it needs attention. And that is precisely what we are saying.
All right, so
we need a performing economy in order to make that happen.
You are trying to now open up new credit lines with the IMF and the World Bank. You want to pay back the arrears, not on the principal loan, about 8 billion, to the IMF and the World Bank, because so you can try and get some money to prop up your economy. But it's a bit ironic, isn't it, now that the Zimbabwean government is trying to get help from the very same institutions of whom a large number of their members are the very people that you have blamed for getting you in this mess?
Please get this clear. We are a shareholder in the World Bank. We are a shareholder in the African Development Bank. We are a shareholder in the IMF. So as a shareholder,
but the ones who call the shots
we
are the
are
countries you
entitled. And
criticise.
for your information, even with the African Development Bank, we are the largest shareholder in Southern Africa. So all we are doing in the
IMF and World Bank.
Yes, all we are doing in the engagement is to try to enjoy the benefits of our membership, access to credit. And their rules provide, as it turns out, that we cannot enjoy those benefits until we clear our arrears. So the engagement is about clearing arrears so that we enjoy the benefits of our membership. And we are not embarrassed by that.
All right, so you are going to hope. And have you had a good reception?
Yes, we have had a very good engagement.
Right.
And the engagement is not overnight one. We started almost when I came in as Minister of Finance. It had just started. We have been working on a staff monitored program, and we have been meeting our targets. Qualitative, quantitative and structural targets. The last targets we met were December last year, and the IMF is reasonably happy with the way we have been running the economy.
But confidence is very, very low.
Sure.
And we know that you started using the US dollar in 2009 when your own currency was destroyed by hyperinflation. And now we see long queues formed by depositors at the banks in Zimbabwe seeking their money, and because there are worries about cash shortages, and you want to bring in one new measure aimed at halting the flow of US dollars from Zimbabwe called bond notes. And these would act as a kind of cash substitute only in Zimbabwe. They wouldn't have any value outside the country. And this is increasing anxiety in your country.
You need again to understand our unique situation. We are one of 3 countries in the world which don't have their own currency, which means that we don't have a policy tool to address any shocks that happen, whether they are external shocks or internal shocks. But what's worse for us is that we use the US dollar for financing domestic transactions, petty though they may be. We use the US dollar for paying wages. No other country has ever done that. For buying tomatoes at the market, buying onions, we use the US dollar. And our difficulty arose when the US dollar started appreciating.
Okay,
because we don't
I understand the
print it.
reasons, but it's your remedy. It's your remedy. It's causing anxiety.
But the remedy, yes, we know when people are faced with change, and we needed to change, and there is no person right now, internally and externally, who can say that the usage of the US dollar for domestic financing is sustainable.
So it's the return of the Zimbabwe dollar through the back door.
It's not.
Which is what Tendai Biti, the former finance minister,
yes,
said.
He may say so. It's not. This bond notes is coming in as an export incentive.
But it's not. It's causing a lot of problems. Look, I just tell you, Fred Moore-Kapirwa, a shopkeeper north of Harare, says it's zombie money made from nothing.
First, it has not come. It has not come.
No, I know,
and
but
exporters are not complaining because this is to benefit exporters because our store of US values, of US stock of US dollars, comes from exports. And we wanted to incentivize the exporters.
So you will bring in these bond notes if you can.
We are saying
you want to.
Bond notes will only be issued relative to the volume of exports. No exports, no issuance of bond notes. And it's backed, by the way, by a $200 million US facility from Afrexim Bank.
From the African Export-Import Bank.
The story about it useless and so on, it can only come from people.
Well, you're going to have to calm the worries in your own country.
You know, the criticism I'm getting now is that they are too late in coming.
Okay,
yes.
Well, that's a view of some people. The Zimbabwean Investment Authority Chairman Nigel Chanakira says there's very little support at a recent meeting of his delegates who said they're opposed to it. But you know, this economic uncertainty is led by political uncertainty because your president is 92. With all respect to somebody his age, there's no succession plan.
No, listen, each country has a right to travel its own path in history. And in the case of our president, yes, he's 92, but you must also know the long path he has traveled, almost since 1958. Yeah, so he has definite views about the destiny of Zimbabwe. And he remains in place to ensure that the trajectory he wants to set for Zimbabwe will be there even after he's gone.
People are beginning to call out now, you know, that they think it's time for him to go in the country. You know, but they are beginning to say that. Could Grace, his wife, I must ask you, could Grace, his wife, succeed him?
No. To be honest, to be fair to us, ZANU-PF remains a very solid, cohesive, formidable political force in Zimbabwe. And all the instability that you are talking about, it's not within our party.
So it won't be Grace who succeeds him because she got a PhD in 5 months, didn't she? Record time to try and big her up.
Don't use the platform to try to insult our
No, I'm not, but she did get...
No, because she's not the subject matter of our discussion.
But she has been...
We are talking about the age of our president. And I'm saying, as far as Zimbabweans are concerned, we are happy. And as far as ZANU-PF is concerned, we are happy. And essentially, the president wants to leave this country on a trajectory in terms of values, in terms of destiny, which will not be reversible. And as far as ZANU-PF is concerned, we are saying anyone wants to contest, they feel free. They feel free. And if the population agrees with them, of course, it means the result will be otherwise. But we should not be dictated to when we choose our leader.
Finance Minister of Zimbabwe, Patrick Chinamasa, thank you very much indeed for coming on HARDtalk.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.